Thanks, guys, for being up here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So Amy, let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about how you work with, I think you referred to them as citizen scientists and landowners who are interested in conservation. Show us your model.
Yeah, so I work for a program, or all of my research is run through a program called Virginia Working Landscapes. And that's a program of the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute. And our mission is to preserve Virginia's native landscapes and also to promote the sustainable use of those landscapes for biodiversity. And one of the ways we do that is through habitat monitoring and ecosystem research. And that's where my PhD falls in. And so we use citizen scientists. We have over 100 citizen scientists that we've trained to help us do surveys for pollinators, for birds, for plants, mammals, invasive species. And we work almost entirely on private lands. So in my case, I work with grassland birds, and they have declined more so than any other ecological guild of birds in North America. And so for us to be able to study these birds, we have to engage private landowners. More than 80% of their habitat is on private lands. And so through Virginia Working Landscapes, we've been able to work with landowners who have grasslands for hay management, for cattle grazing, for recreation like hunting. And we're able to look at how these different management practices influence the grassland birds.
Oh, it's fantastic. And Matt, similar question to you. Share with us a little bit of the scope of your work at Chesapeake Bay, and in particular the Movement of Life initiative, and some of the tools you're developing to do conservation movement there.
Yeah, sure. My team at the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center spends a lot of time thinking about what places are important to fish, how those fish perceive the world, and where they're going and why. And that's a real challenge. If you're on land, you can stick a satellite tag on something and track it around anywhere, but satellite transmissions don't go through water too well. So we use sound to do a lot of our research. We tag the fish with acoustic tags that send pings out to a series of receivers that researchers have deployed all around the world. One of the things that we're working on developing right now is to solve one of our biggest problems, which is researchers often share that data by sending each other emails every couple of months when they go out and collect the data. And so we're on the east coast of the US right now. We're developing a database that allows for exchange of that data, but also long-term archiving and ability to share those stories and data with the public through a web and map interface.
Right on, it's great. So this work is hard work, and it's hard. Funding is hard. Lots of things are hard about it. Amy, what motivates you? And also, I'm interested in what the motivation of some of the landowners that you're working with. What excites you in that way, and what do you see on the horizon for them?
For me, I think what motivates me the most is seeing the results of my research being applied on-the-ground management across the landscape in Virginia. For the landowners, we work with such a variety of people, and they all have different management goals. But I would say, as a whole, what probably motivates them the most is each other. We hold several networking events a year so that we can introduce the landowners to each other, and then folks with like-minded interests can meet and talk about the challenges they've had, but also talk about the successes they've had. And this has often resulted in some really great relationships that have influenced change on the landscape.
That's fantastic. You mentioned successes. The Chesapeake Bay, I think we've probably all read different information about successes in Chesapeake Bay. There are some. To you, what's the successes you're most excited about? And then what are those next steps, that next horizon of where you want to make new headway? Right.
Well, a lot of times scientists like talking about the species they did their PhD on, and if you haven't seen my blue crab socks here, I studied those. But a lot of our iconic Chesapeake Bay species have come back pretty well in response to directed management actions, from bald eagles and ospreys that responded to banning DDT and have come back in huge numbers, to things like blue crabs and striped bass that have responded really well to sustainable fisheries management. Our new blue crab population was announced yesterday, and it's doing pretty well. But one of the ones I'm really excited about right now are two species called alewife and blueback herring. They're collectively called river herring. They're sort of like salmon. They live in the ocean most of their life, but spawn in freshwater streams. There have been extensive efforts through the Chesapeake Bay program over the last decade to reopen streams that were blocked by dams or other structures. And if you were, instead of being here outside enjoying a beautiful day at Rock Creek Park or the National Zoo, you might be able to see those fish spawning in the stream right now. But only because there were structures removed from Rock Creek Parkway a few years ago. So that's one of the successes we're tracking. We haven't seen those populations up and down the Atlantic coast come back in huge numbers yet, but there's huge conservation effort, and I think it's really exciting time to be able to study how large conservation efforts are working that have been put in over recent decades.
Excellent. Final question, Matt. I know if you could be any marine animal, it would be the blue crab. Amy, if you could be any grassland bird, what would it be?
I think my favorite is the eastern meadowlark because they have a song that just reminds me of spring, and it's a really optimistic song.
Thank you both for your work, and it's always inspiring to have folks like you out there finding success stories.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.